The next tool I want to introduce you to within the successful drumming product is called the Note Value Recognition System. Now, this is a system I developed to help you figure out the feel of a song before you actually start playing it. Now, just like a guitar player or a piano player or any sort of melodic instrument is going to figure out the key of a song, and that tells them what other chords are involved within that song or the possible chord combinations, we need to figure out what sort of note values are associated with this song so we know what type of fills to do, what type of beats are going to come, which will help us anticipate what's coming next in the song and learn the song quicker. Now, in order to actually utilize this tool to its fullest, you need to have a very firm understanding of all the note values. If you haven't completed all the information in the foundation section, then I highly recommend you do that now, because that's what's going to be the basis for this whole note value recognition system, and it's going to be way easier for you to learn songs and pick up the feel of the song rather than just guessing. Now, the note value recognition system is a basic 5-step process to figuring out the drumming key to a song or figuring out the note values associated with it. So let's just go through each of the steps, and after that we're going to actually look at some musical examples and start recognizing the note values associated with those songs. Okay, so step 1 is quarter notes. Find the quarter note of a song. Now, this should be relatively easy for anyone unless you're dealing with some odd times or stuff like that. To start, I'd recommend that you just keep it very simple, and I know this is a tool more for beginner and intermediate drummers. You advanced drummers, you're probably not as inclined to necessarily listen for this stuff off the bat just because it's easier for you to pick up things by ear naturally. And that's going to come especially through using this tool for you beginner and intermediate drummers. So the first step, figure out the quarter note. So listen to some music and just tap your foot along to that. Generally, whatever you tap your foot at or snap your fingers to, that's the quarter note. Now, it's not always the case. Sometimes you'll find the song is really slow, so to actually snap or tap the quarter note, it's really hard. But I'd really recommend that you try and find the quarter note within music first. And that's kind of your basis. And what a melodic instrument will do is they'll try and find the root chord or the main chord, and that's how they find the key. Once they find that, it's easy for them to put the other chords around it or to find out the actual key of the song. Okay, step 2 is to find the secondary note value. Now, generally within songs, there's way more than just one note value. Okay, the quarter note is our main kind of pulse, but the drummer is probably not playing this. So just because you found the quarter note to the song doesn't mean that you now know how to play the groove. It's nothing about that. You've just found out the quarter note, which is going to help you decipher all the other note values. So the secondary note value is actually going to help you define the feel of the song. So if that's what's a quarter note, the secondary note value of the song might be something like this. So in this case, the secondary note value would be eighth notes. Now, what if I was playing something a little bit different? What if I was playing this? The secondary note value there would be 16th notes, because that main pulse you hear there is 16th notes. So just to give you a musical example, let's take a look at AC/DC's Back in Black. You know, generally, that secondary note value there is eighth notes, right? The chord note being okay? Now, the secondary note value when you're listening to a U2 song or a song from Muse, one of my favorite bands, that's probably more of a 16th note feel on the hi-hats, right? And even with the guitar player in U2 plays a lot of 16th note rhythms on his guitar. Now, let's look at step number 3. Step number 3 is alternate note values. So let's say the quarter note is obviously on 1, 2, 3, 4. the eighth note is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and within the song. And let's say you heard this one part where it was a little bit different. So you listen to it again, you realize, okay, that's 16th note triplets. Well, that's going to be our alternate note value. Okay, so we start with quarter notes, we go to eighth notes, and then our alternate note value is 16th note triplets. And so that would sound like this. So now that we know our note values associated with the song, and if there is another note value, if there's 4 or 5, you just need to pick out the ones that are most prevalent and learn those first, and then practice the changes. So let's say there's those 3, quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th note triplets. You practice those changes as far as within a group. Now let's just change it up just for fun and just to kind of challenge ourselves a little bit. So our main note value is the quarter note. We found that quarter note. Now what's the secondary note value? Well, let's just say the secondary note value is 16th notes, okay? And then our alternate note value is eighth note triplets. Okay, so let's go from quarter notes to 16th notes to eighth note triplets, all played within a groove. And then the fifth step is note value location changes. And this goes hand in hand with the drumming cheat sheet because you need to know where these things change and it needs to relate to the form of the song. So the more that you can, use this tool in conjunction with the drumming cheat sheet, the better. They're going to work really, really well together. And so if you find that, okay, the eighth note part, the secondary note value is 8 bars, and then the 16th note portion is 6 bars, you can practice those types of changes. So I'll just do that. I'll do 8 bars of eighth notes and then 6 bars of 16th notes. So really rehearse those changes in the time of each note value. Now what I want to do is take a song from the Successful Drumming package and actually just pull out the note values from it and see what we got. So the song I have is Good People. Let's listen to that. That's our quarter note, okay? 2, 3. Now let's listen. What's the secondary note value? Eighth notes. It's that hi-hat part, right? Okay, so we have quarter notes, we have eighth notes. Now let's listen for the alternate note value. Okay, so you heard some 16th notes there. Okay? All right, so our note values are quarter notes, eighth notes, and 16th notes. Simple as that. Let's take another song. This one's called Grayson's Ladder. Let's listen for the note values here. A little bit of odd time there. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? So what do we hear? 16th notes as our secondary note value. There's the quarter note. And you hear some of the little nuances in there, some of the little fills. Those are actually 32nd note fills. You'll hear a lot of little stuff in the hi-hat, snare, and the toms. That kind of stuff there. All right, so now that you know that, I practice going between quarter notes, 16th notes, and 32nd notes. So it's going to be way easier for you to play that song if you know exactly what's required of you to play that song, especially if you're trying to play something and stay true to what the drummer is doing. If you just want to do your own thing, it's not necessarily as important. You could simply just play quarter notes the whole time, and if that's the style you're going for, that's totally fine. But for me, I sometimes have to learn parts that are very close to what the drummer is doing, so it's important for me to understand what's going on. And so many times, obviously I know where the quarter note is because I have lots of experience playing music, but then there's lots of times where there's like a 16th note triplet fill. I'm like, okay, what is that? Is that 32nd note, 16th note triplets? And I listen very, very closely. And because I have practiced the note values a lot and I have a good understanding of what they are and how they relate to time and music, it becomes a lot easier for me to decipher that. Okay, figure out the drum fill right there. I know exactly what the drummer is doing with that fill because I understand note values. And this type of practice is really going to help you. And this is the type of practice you can do away from the drum set. You could be in your car listening to songs on the radio. A song can come up, you tap the quarter note, and you say, okay, he's using 16th notes. Okay, that was a 32nd note fill. Later when you go home, practice that combination. You might hear some weird combinations, okay? You might hear some really weird combinations, especially when you get into different time signatures. Okay, so if your main note value isn't quarter notes, which it generally is all the time, sometimes it could be eighth notes technically, and then your secondary note value would probably be 16th notes, 16th note triplets, and then from there you could get really, really crazy. So let's just keep it simple to start. I'm going to give you one more song example, okay? There's our quarter note. Whoa. Okay, so I'm hearing a few other things in there. Now this is a tough call. You have to decide, are you going to call the secondary note value 8th notes or 16th notes? And in this case, I would call it 16th notes because a lot of the stuff that's happening within that groove is 16th note bass. I'll just play it for you. Okay, so what else are we hearing there, even when I'm just kind of breaking down the groove for you there? I hear the quarter note, obviously. The secondary I would call 16th notes. And then the third note value I would call 32nd notes, because a lot of the different things are happening on the hi-hat. Now, this song has kind of a combination of all the note values, but if you were to really kind of break it down to the main ones being utilized, that's what I would call it. Now, there's those shots in there that you hear every couple phrases, and those shots are actually quarter note triplets. So, if you really wanted to get technical, what I would recommend doing is practicing quarter notes to 16th notes to 32nd notes to quarter note triplets. Back to quarter notes to 16th notes to 32nd notes to quarter note triplets. And that would look like this. Now, once you do that, playing the song and playing those fills is going to be way easier once you just simply recognized the note values. Okay, so what I really need you guys to do is choose 3 songs from the Successful Drumming package. Not the 3 songs that I've demonstrated here. Choose 3 different ones, and I want you to write out all the note values associated with that song, and I want you to practice those note value changes. Okay? Now, it might take a while for you to figure out, but just find the quarter note. Next step, secondary, then the alternate note values. Okay? And if you just one, that's fine. If it's more than one, go ahead and write those in. And then continue to practice and practice and practice. And then actually try and play those songs, and you'll probably find it a lot easier. The next thing I want to do is go through the progress report for the note value recognition system. I basically put together 10 different grooves that I'm going to play for you. And I want you to be able to listen to the grooves and then write down the note value associated with that groove. Now the kicker is I'm not playing these all at the same tempo. So we're going to have 2 bars of click, and then I'm going to play the groove for 4 bars, and then I'm going to stop. And it's as simple as that. You have 4 bars to kind of capture the groove within that specific tempo. All right? So here we go through all 10 questions. So hopefully you wrote down 16th notes. That was the note value I was playing there. Let's move on to the next one. I was trying to trick you a little bit there. I was playing an 8th note triplet feel B within the same tempos that we did the last one on. Let's move on to number 3. The main note value there was 8th note triplets, just at a little bit of slower tempo than the last question. Let's move on to number 4. Hopefully you got that one right. That one was just straight 8th notes. Let's move on to the next one. There, I was playing 16th note triplets at 60 beats per minute. Let's move on to the next one. There, I was playing quarter notes at 180 beats per minute. Let's move on to the next one. There, I was playing 16th notes again, but this time at 60 beats per minute. Let's move on to the next one. There, I was playing 8th note triplets at 180 beats per minute. There, I was playing quarter notes at 50 beats per minute. Now let's move on to the final one. So there, I was playing 8th notes at 140 beats per minute. And that's the end of the progress report for the note value recognition system. Hopefully you got them all correct. And that's kind of the end of the breakdown section for the successful drumming package. Now, these are just my techniques and my tips for how to learn music and how to learn your favorite songs. They work really, really well in a cover band setting where you have to learn a bunch of tunes in a short amount of time. Or they really work well in a church setting or a jam band setting in your garage and stuff like that. Like wherever you're playing with your buddies, these tips and techniques are going to work really, really well for you. And they'll help you learn songs quickly, and they'll help you retain the information faster. So I hope you enjoyed this. Once you've completed all the progress reports associated with everything in the breakdown section, you can go ahead and move on to the next section within the Successful Drumming product.